Testing. All right, we've completely thrown everybody into a bit of disarray, as you can see, because we decided to mix the session format up, and we're not doing the traditional stand up and then a few questions at the end. I've got all these guys in the hot seats. So one, I can ask them the really hard questions, and two, so can you all, and we'll leave plenty of time for that. I'm Bronwyn Voice. For those that didn't just see my keynote, I am the founder of Civic Futures Lab, and I'm really delighted to be the chair of this panel, Understanding the Circular Economy. I won't go into detail of the very accomplished bios of each of the panelists that I'm seated here with, because you can all read and you all have access to the program. So in the interest of time, we are running a little bit behind. We'll get sort of straight into it. And I'm going to, are you okay with this? Yep, we're going to do something a little bit different to start off. And my panelists don't even know all about this. Gail and I conspired last night we had a Merlot moment. And so Gail's going to take us on a little bit of a journey just to get our heads in the space for this discussion. So,
okay, thanks, Bron. Has anyone seen the Alan MacArthur, MacArthur video of how, when she first talked about the circular economy on TED Talk? How many have seen it? Highly recommend. Okay. So one of the things when I first started looking at circular economy, obviously I wanted to go to the source. And I looked at what's Alan MacArthur's journey as a sailor around the world and what inspired her to think about this concept of circular economy. And she was racing solo around the world, and when she finished her race, she realised that the world was a finite resource. And as an educator, it's something I always start with. So what I want you to do is, maybe we can just lower the lights, and I was going to put a picture up of probably, you know, when the Apollo 11 first went into space, and they had that image of the Earth, which was the Earth rising. Has anyone seen that? 100%. Have a look at that. Just imagine that. I want you to imagine that you're sitting in a rocket ship. You can close your eyes. You're just about to take off. Just relax. Roll your shoulders. Just imagine you're sitting in there. You're an astronaut about to take off and go up into space for the first time. You're on the Apollo 11. You're rising up through the atmosphere, going up higher and higher. It's dark, and then you look up and you see this brilliant jewel in the darkness, this jewel of planet Earth. And you realise that you're sitting in space looking at this beautiful planet that is finite in its resources. And I want you to imagine that you're now going off into another solar system. You're going to another planet, and this planet could be a parallel universe. It could be another civilization that has a circular economy on its planet. I want you to go down and land on that planet. And I want you to observe what's going on. What does it look like? What are people doing? What are they thinking? How are they feeling? How is this circular economy working on this planet, in this parallel universe? Just imagine, let yourself imagine what it could be like. And I want you to then take something, a thought, a feeling, an inspiration from that experience, from that alternate universe. Take it with you, because this is your gift when you come back to Earth. This is your gift that you're going to share with the person next to you when you land back on the planet Earth. So now you're leaving that planet, you're coming back to the beautiful jewel of planet Earth. You're landing and you're back. And I'd just like you to share with the person next to you. How was it? What did you see? What did you feel? What was different? Was there anything that you can share? So do that now. Something different?
Great. Thank you. Oh, no, you hang on to that. I've got this.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know it's tricky to do these things. It's not easy to do it, but thank you for giving me that opportunity to share that with you. Is there anyone who'd like to share something?
Oh,
Wow.
beautiful.
Okay, interesting. No disposable nappies. Maybe two more. Anything else? Any inspiration you took, Marie? Everything is designed for its second life. One more? Yes. Smaller scale. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for allowing me to indulge you in that creative visualisation.
Thank you so much, Gail. So, as I said, it was a bit of a surprise both for the panellists and I know for the audience that that's how we were going to start. But we heard in the first session how we need to do things differently, right? And so I thought we'd start this one with doing things a little bit differently. Now that we've got a bit of a vision of what the circular economy could be, I'm going to open up the first question with my panel, my esteemed panel. So we have Marcus, who's joined us from another country, Western Australia. We've got Lorna, who's joined us from Deakin and Victoria. And we have Grant from the city of the Gold Coast. And we have Mark, who's joined us from Cleanaway, and Gail, who you've now met from Regroup. So to start off, what is a circular economy not, Marcus?
What it's not is not recycling on steroids. It's not business as usual, and I actually thought about that before I saw your presentation this morning, the keynote. It's really rethinking how we deal with nature, living within the boundaries, and really resetting and starting with design, whether it's a product or an infrastructure, or so it's not BAU. That's most important.
Thank you.
You stole my stuff, Marcus, thank you. But I've also got another one. It's not haphazard. The waste system has evolved over time. The circular economy can't. We actually have to be purposeful in our thinking and purposeful in our actions to make it happen.
Mine's going to be a bit controversial, and it comes from me being a civil engineer, so boring, conservative, but pragmatic. It's not trying to solve everything. The enemy of great is perfect. So if we can hit 85%, 75%, it's much better than where we are now. But as we get up that curve and we're approaching that 99%, it becomes a lot harder. And I think we can take lessons from other places, but I think trying to go for good first, then great, and then head towards perfect.
Great. And was Cleanaway there in the utopia?
We're trying to be. Look, this may seem really simple, but what it's not is single use, right? So, and what I mean by that is we've got, in the waste hierarchy, recycling. What's Cleanaway has done has broken that up into three. So I've got international recycling, so where you send it overseas to be reprocessed in the forms of pallets for plastics, etc. At the very top, you have domestic recycling. So we've got joint ventures where we have plastic palletising facilities, and that's domestic recycling. That's the most desirable. And then still desirable, but the least, is downcycling. There is nothing circular about downcycling because it's a single use. And again, it gets back to product design. I think product stewardship is one of the most important things that we can do in this space.
Great.
Thank you. I think there's no such thing as the word waste in a circular economy. It doesn't exist. It's in nature that nothing is wasted. Everything is a resource. And we just need to be humble enough to look, listen and learn as to how nature does it. And if you've heard of biomimicry, it's one of the founding principles of the circular economy, we need to think like nature thinks. How do we work together and collaborate? So it's not about just competition, it's about collaboration.
Now, I want to temper this, the gloom with the exciting opportunity. And I haven't decided who I'm going to pick on yet. So if anyone wants to jump in first, please do. But I want us to highlight what we think is brilliant that's happening at a federal level, that's happening at a state level, and that's happening at localised level, as well as what's bad and what's ugly. Like, what do we need to really sort of focus on in the near term? So I'm sure you've got an opinion, Marcus.
Oh, no. It's well, what I think is brilliant that actually in the last 3 to 4 years, it's all coming together, because it was just waste management and a little bit of recycling and sending it overseas. But now we've got local bylaws, we've got state strategies, and the feds are now, largely aligned as well. And, organics out of landfill and, design stuff that can be reused and circular procurement. So I think that's great. But what is really bad, it's only talk, and we've been talking on how we're going to do this and, how it should look like. And I don't see a lot of action, actually, because it's still scattered. There's no harmonized approach. It's all very difficult, and it all takes a long time for such a thing that is so simple. And I think, Gail, I agree with you. Just look what Mother Nature does, and everything is reused, and there's no waste at all. So why is it so difficult? Why can't we just get on with it? Build the infrastructure. I heard it before. Actually, I thought New South Wales fixed it all, because this presentation this morning was fantastic. There's an infrastructure plan, and it's going to include circular economy infrastructure and recycling infrastructure and waste infrastructure. There's going to be EPR schemes for everything. So it's good. Well, hello, it's not happening. It's not happening, and we're running out of time. So I think that's the bad. So the good is we are getting aligned, and we know where we're heading. The bad thing is, I think we're waiting for the bus to arrive. We're all in the bus shelter, and we're waiting for the bus to arrive to jump on the bus.
Tell us about your bus, Lorna.
Yeah, I'm not waiting for the bus. I'm on ahead. Yeah, Victoria is well ahead. I think what's brilliant is actually the interest and the ambition coming from the Commonwealth Government. I think it's nice to have them in the space. It is one way to kind of bring the states together, and whether that is we've come together to collaborate to support the Commonwealth Government, or we're coming together to go, yeah, nah, that's not going to work for us. I like the new focus on design standards. I think that's really critical in this space, and it's one of the things, and I know Gail's been pushing it in a lot of the meetings that we're in. That's the appropriate place for the Commonwealth Government to be. That is where the leverage can happen. That is where they've got the power, and it is where they can talk on behalf of all of Australia. I think what's been bad and is sometimes challenging is for the past 4 years, National Action Plan has not helped. We are very much driven by meeting the targets on that National Action Plan. And I felt, for Victoria at least, they've been at the wrong end of the supply chain. That's kind of interfered with some of the things that we wanted to do in Victoria. It's maybe put us off course a little bit. But I think it's still good that they're in the conversation. But I'm really excited about what we might be able to do. I like to think we can bring a bit of influence to bear with the Commonwealth, and we can join as states to do that. So I'm really excited about this next phase when they start getting into design standards, and that's where we can make the greatest gains.
So we've got this mirage in the distance, and we've got the feds setting some ambition and policy, and we can see it, but Marcus, we're not going quite fast enough to get there, and there's too much talking on the bus. You just want to hurry up and get there, and then we think we're about to get there, and then there's another corner to turn, or the journey is long and challenging when we're talking about systems change. So we need more of that incremental, those little actions along the way to, as highlighting that we're getting to the mirage. But then from an industry perspective, Mark, what do you think is the brilliant and the bad and ugly? Because we hear from industry, we want consistency, but we want some certainty as well. So we want harmonisation and we want regulation because we want to know where we're going.
Yeah, and I can give a practical example of that. We just recently announced a partnership with Viva to reprocess or to invest in chemical recycling. So we're doing a feasibility study at the moment. But for us to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on large-scale infrastructure, what we need is product design.
Millions of dollars.
Did I say hundreds of thousands?
Yeah, we want millions.
Hundreds of millions of dollars of investment. What a tiny facility to be for hundreds of thousands of dollars. Hundreds of millions of dollars investment, but for that, like you said, we need certainty. And certainty comes with regulation from the federal government. Product design, product stewardship is its starting point. Only then, when we see the signals, that we will invest in large-scale infrastructure.
Now, the City of Gold Coast is taking a very sort of, I would say an ambitious approach. Quite a few years ago, I personally worked on the SEQ waste management plan with the Southeast Queensland, all of the mayors sitting around the table going, right, we have a problem. We're running out of airspace. You guys have about 10 years left. So what are you guys doing in the absence of a national policy, in the absence of, and I hope I'm not going to offend any of our wonderful Queensland Des or colleagues in the room, but in the absence of that clear leadership from government at a federal and state level?
So the City of Gold Coast recently announced the Advanced Resource Recovery Centre. So it's a 10-year program of waste infrastructure works. It's got 8 major parts to it. It's targeting the whole gamut of circular economy. We've got a new MRF replacing our existing infrastructure. We've got C&D, we've got a new organics processing, we've got a community education centre, sewage treatment plant, because it's been thrown in my bucket for some reason. Lots of different things. But the really sad part about circular economy still as a reality of a local government, that we pick up lots and lots of bins every week, is that we've got a huge amount of residual waste. The city has been investing in community education strongly since about 2014. Probably many of you have seen it or been involved in some of it over the years, and we still have only got a recycling, like a diversion from landfill rate of around 35, 36%. A lot of effort has gone in, and we're going to keep up that good fight, but one of the big aspects of it is a new waste energy plant. The SEQ waste strategy talked about 3 to 4. We've got an ambition to be the first. There's others in the room that are close, and there's others that are talking about it, but that's what the city needs to make it go forward. I think that the good thing, just going back to the original question, is that we are talking about circular economy, that we aren't just looking to put everything in the ground and forget about it. That's literally the worst thing we can do. But the reality is, even with all this other investment, and look, the city is putting in $1.6 billion for this package of work over the next 8 or 9 years, which is a substantial, it'll be the biggest project the city has invested in ever. We're still going to need some landfill, because there's still going to be residual even after all of that. And we're in a really unique position that we're big enough, whether that's good or bad, to actually be able to invest in this amount of money. I'm really worrying looking at smaller local governments that may have less levers to pull, and really struggling to be able to achieve some of the ambitions that we're able to.
Gail, brilliant, bad and ugly.
I think what's brilliant is that we've got everyone working together across all of the jurisdictions. I think local government is doing an amazing job working on developing circular economy plans, building capacity, even changing titles, like getting officers changing from being waste education officers to circular economy officers, and then working with their economic development teams, working across council and regionally to look at opportunities and to understand. When I was at Metro Waste Resource Recovery Group in Victoria, we ran a capacity building training program for local government, but actually everybody joined in. It was amazing. Through the United Nations, it was a training program on the circular economy. Did anyone join in on that? It went sort of national. Maybe it was more Victorians that joined in. So building the capacity and the knowledge and connecting people and having that sort of engagement, I think was really, really amazing. Unfortunately, we don't have Metro anymore, so I think we're looking still to how we can build those types of programs, and I suppose Circular Economy Victoria or Australia maybe is the way to go, and working on that sort of training. But I go back to the 3 principles: eliminate waste, circulate materials and products and regenerate. If we can all think that way, and I think we also need to understand what bit do we play? What's our special, unique element that we can all bring to help accelerate the circular economy? Because if we take it on personally and we work with others to share that vision, then we can all work together to achieve something amazing.
Thank you. Marcus, I want to jump to you in terms of that real sort of localised policy as well as investment in infrastructure, building off what Grant's talked about. Tony used the term carrot-flavoured sticks, which I quite liked. Can you tell us a bit about what you've seen and what you've done, in particular in a region that, I mean, would have a lot of similarities to other parts of Australia because of its remoteness in terms of to the central, the big processing capacity, to really start to solve those problems at a local level?
Yeah. So we are isolated, obviously, in Western Australia, and there's some infrastructure, but majority is landfill. But we're on track for the targets. Mike Ritchie put a report out a couple of weeks ago, but WA actually on track as one of the only states that are going to meet the targets. 70% recovery, because there's a lot of C&D being recovered, and MSW. And C&I is a bit of a lag, but MSW, we're moving all to FOGO, which is about 50-60% of the weight in the bin, so that reduces the. So that's good. But the issue with the regulatory framework and sticks is that our levy is low. It's going up to $85 from the 1st of July, and we are now $70. And then for the next 5 years, it's a CPI increase. So it's a bit of a stick, but not enough. Big issue is
not a big enough stick.
Not big enough, no, because if you're really serious about things, you make it. You just price it out of the, so it's not attractive anymore, and you give an incentive to resource recovery. But the other thing is obviously the hypothecation. There's $80 million collected in landfill levy, and only $20 million goes back to the war levy account. And that $20 million, $10 million is spent on paying officers to look at compliance and all of that. And the other thing is there's 800,000 tons missing. In 2017, suddenly the waste generation dropped by 800,000 tons. So that's most likely going out of the metro area. So the regulatory framework is there. It's just that actually, I'm not interested about that part of anymore. I'm more interested in the capacity of the regulator to actually issue works approvals and keep up with the demand to establish infrastructure. And that's why I'm saying we're talking about this, but no one is gearing up for additional resources to issue these licenses. We're trying to license a APCR facility, and Grant, you'll have that. So that's APCR is the fly ash from the waste to energy facilities. There's 2 being built in Western Australia, 33,000 tons. We want to take that in. It's a Class 5 material. We want to add cement and water, and then we want to put it in a Class 4 cell, and it just solidifies and it encapsulates and it immobilizes all the nasties. We've been doing this now for 18 months, and we spend $1 million on the licensing, and there's just no capacity. And we're getting close. Well, we're closer than we were ever been. But, and it's going to happen. It's just the speed and agility of the regulator that actually has to help the industry.
Can I jump to you on that one? Tony mentioned also, and sorry, I don't think Tony's in the room, so I can keep saying what Tony mentioned. And he talked about a pilot a pilot license or for those experiments to do more of what you're talking about. How would that change the game for the likes of Clean Away and Regroup?
I wasn't there for Tony's presentation.
I appreciate that.
But look, I think quite simply, and in just building on that, tax for governments, tax what you don't want and incentivise what you do want. So landfill levies, they should be harmonised. And Western Australia is very low, Queensland's very low. But congratulations to the Victorian government who made a parity with New South Wales. As you move higher up the waste hierarchy, you want to incentivise people. So we've seen that
So what's the carrot-flavoured incentive? Tell us.
Well, I'll give one example of a tax, and that's a tax on exports, right? And that's recycling. So you're taxing recycling. It just makes zero sense at all. And I understand that needs to be some sort of cost recovery for the government, but I think a levy or a tax on recycling is a disincentive, right? You're just going to see more in landfill. These projects cost a lot of money as well. We've got joint ventures with Pact Group, Sahi and Coke. It's called Circular Plastics Australia. It's a pelletising facility.
I've been there, yeah.
You've been there, fantastic. Great facility, $55 million investment. And to be quite honest, really hard to compete with recycled content from overseas, given the overheads of electricity and staffing. So again, I think, and even if you look at landfill capture, I know it's not necessarily a circular economy, but you incentivise and more is captured. So again, I think it's quite simple. Tax what you don't want, incentivise what you do.
I think that CDS one is a really good, if everyone's not didn't go to the CDS session yesterday or doesn't know about that model, but I think it's really something that we need to think about how we replicate. So on one hand, the beverage sector has to put money in for every bottle that they put on the market. Oh, thanks, Tony. Tony's arrived, so I can continue to keep quoting him in his presentations. The beverage sector has to, and I apologise, I don't know, it's like 16 cents or something, whatever it is. They have to put money in the front end for every single bottle that they put on the market, those that are captured in the scheme. They then co-invested with the likes of other competitors, so Coke, Asahi, and then the likes of Pact and Cleanaway, to build infrastructure to reprocess those materials at end of life, as well as invest in a national collection, which I know is not perfect. We heard that yesterday, but we also heard yesterday that there's more CDS collection points than McDonald's in Queensland. So they've got a national network where they collect, they pay up front, and then there's onshore capacity at the end that can then go back into the recycled content. And I don't work for Coke, but if you don't know, every bottle that's I think 1 litre and under that goes onto the market is made from 100% recycled content. That cannot all be, not all of that is from onshore material, but we certainly have the capacity to build that onshore. And I think we need to be thinking about, to your point, that upfront, the product stewardship, the extended producer responsibility, who's paying at the front, how we're designing our products and services that are going out into the Australian market, as well as what's coming in through our imports, and then how we're going to deal with that both at end of life, but also use those materials back through the value chain. So in addition to the waste to energy, what's City of Gold Coast thinking around how they play a broader, and I'll come to you as well, sorry Lorna, because I want to talk to you about C&I afterwards as well.
So look, we are coming up with solutions around all of our waste streams that we manage, but I just want to tag onto the regulations part for a moment, because there's a concept that I was only recently discussed, and it's the concept of, and coming back to Gail's point earlier, there is no waste in a circular economy world. When we recycle something, and the big thing I'm thinking about is the incinerator bottom ash, so IBAA, out of the back end of the plant. There is no end of waste code for that at the moment. But if I go and reuse that to build a road, completely legitimate, they do it all over Europe, wonderful like that. If I go and reprocess that road, there's a legal argument that was waste and now it's not being used for the purpose. It's now a waste, and that whole area needs to be deemed effectively contaminated and treated like a landfill. So it even goes beyond one life. It goes to really looking at things in multi-stages, because that bit of aggregate, it stops quarries. We could potentially use that 10, 20, 100 times, but on the second time, it's now got this really weird legal definition, which just screws things up entirely. So I think your concept of no waste in a circular economy world is really probably a cornerstone of us moving forward, because as long as we still have that waste tag, there's still going to be, sorry Desi if you're in the room, there's still going to be Desi officers wondering where that goes.
Yeah, and even someone buying the recycled content has the risk of potentially having to have a waste license, because now they've got this recycled soil on their premises before they remanufacture it into another product. Vic has done a lot, particularly around recycled content in procurement, I would say market leaders in Australia. You have particularly had a huge focus over the last few years on the household waste, and We know from all the data that we've almost, except maybe for the city of Gold Coast, done as much as we can with that stream. The big opportunity is really in that C&I stream. Can I get you to give us a bit of an overview of?
Yeah, I guess in Victoria, if you haven't heard, Ecologic have done some amazing work, particularly around our big build projects, of which we have many, sending the state slowly broke. But they've done a lot of work in the research around standards, supported by Sustainability Victoria, and they were funded through the policy 4 years ago. So things like noise walls on freeways is now 100% recycled, made by Pact Group. Looking at recycled concrete, aggregates, those sorts of things. And they're really gearing up to bring that knowledge into local government, which is another big it's the next step, big game changer. We know that there is still some reluctance to use recycled content. There's still a lot of old engineers that said, "Nah, we tried that 30 years ago and it didn't work." And
if I had $1 for every time.
And we've been fighting that for some time in Victoria, well before Ecologic was in play. But we are starting to see that increasing appetite from local government to procure for recycled content and to make sure that they're looking for end-of-life opportunities. And I think that is the next big step for us as well as a state government from a circular economy perspective is how do we get every other state entity to be thinking about how am I building that hospital? What is my level of recycled content that I could be using in that hospital? But also, how am I designing it so that in 30 or 40 years' time, when it's at its end of life, I can either pick it up piece by piece and move it to somewhere else where it might be needed, or reuse it to build something else, so that we're not in this cycle of just building and demolishing, because there are huge gains to be made in the C&D sector as well as the C&I sector.
Gail, I want to go to you then, just picking on that point. I mean, you've talked about the experience that you had working with local governments and the UN and the capacity building. And when I think about the Ellen MacArthur Foundation Butterfly, which I'm sure everybody in this room has seen at some point, and all the pieces in it, and it shows us the value chains of the future of what circularity looks like. But what it doesn't do, and I've done it on a slide before, is I've put people along every part of that point, whether it's a manufacturer, or is it a designer or a recycler. This is all about people, and this is about people making different decisions around people, influencing different policies. How do we do more of that at scale in the local government sector, but more broadly?
Well, I guess from myself, working for Regroup, we are a specialist resource recovery company. So we work in the middle. We are in that recycling sphere of the butterfly diagram. So if you haven't look it up, Google it, have a quick look, butterfly diagram, Ellen MacArthur. You'll see it's sort of the outer sphere in recycling. And obviously the intersection with local government is responsible for, waste and resource recovery. We'll lose that word, waste, won't we? And so when I was reflecting on this session, having moved back into corporate, having come out of government and been working very closely with local government from state level, now working with local government at a corporate level, what I'm finding is there's a couple of leverage points. One is contracts. So what I'm seeing is local government are able to put more sustainable procurement into the contracts and circular economy principles and expectations of contractors like Regroup, like Cleanaway, like Visy, like all of us working to actually showcase how we can work together with local government. Now, as I say, we work in a little bit of in the middle. We can work with any offtake company to take the materials from our material recovery facilities and our container deposit facilities and our organic facilities. So we're not sort of just stuck with one offtake. We'll work with everyone to maximise that resource recovery and that reprocessing. But what I'm also seeing is that we've still got a long way to go with the amount of contamination, the amount of waste that's still going in the yellow bin, if you've got a yellow bin. Not everyone's still got a yellow bin. Some people have a red bin, which is a recycling bin in Victoria, which is a bummer, but that's changing.
Not for long.
But anyway, what I'm really looking forward to is when Lorna releases the standard list, right? So in Victoria, we're going to have this standard list, which creates an equal playing field. So once you've got a basic understanding of everything that can go in that bin, you can communicate it, local government can get on board. I mean, we're using RecycleMate as a great platform to educate people, using that ability to say this is a one-stop shop where you can get all the information. I know that obviously state government will come out with its way of explaining what you can and can't put in, but until that happens, we're using that. So I think the contracts, and now going back to what's in the bin, what I'm seeing is a lot of hazardous items. A lot of hazardous items still coming through that don't have a home. And I'm not just talking batteries. I'm talking nitrous oxide containers. Like, we get about 300 of those a month at one MRF. Like, that is outrageous, and it's a bit of a social issue that we've got young people taking these nitrous oxide containers and doing that. So I think what we're seeing is these other aspects of what's coming through the bin. Now, if we can track things like we do with the CDS, if we have an ability to say this material's coming through and we understand where it's going, we've got traceability. We don't have that yet with our commingled materials. And one other, I don't want to rave on too much, but one other point, when I was looking at and packaging, there's a e-peel or pro-peel, there's a new type of way of, rather than putting fruit in plastic and containers, it's just putting sort of a layer of organic layer over the fruit that makes it last longer. So sort of designing out the waste. So we'll have to redesign MRFs for the future. Maybe the packaging will be totally different. We have to rethink how we design MRFs.
Maybe, it will be.
We will.
We're going to meet the APCO targets.
We will, yeah.
And
So I think that's it. Our MRFs were designed, previously under a linear system. We now need a circular system MRF.
And I think that point really is, those APCO targets, we did go out to industry with a voluntary target, and it wasn't quick enough. And the government at the federal level has now acted and said, right, we're going to mandate these targets. And now there's a scramble on, well, how do we get there? Because we weren't going quite quick enough. So I think that should at least also be a bit of a warning signal that if you don't think that the change is coming, you probably should think again, because I think we'll start to see some stronger legislation and regulation as part of the National Circular Economy Framework, which is due to be released later this year. Marcus, I know you're itching to jump in and add something else to that.
Yeah, no, I'd just like to follow up from Lorna talking about using recycled content and you're creating this pool in the market for materials, because if we make fantastic products but there's no market for it, that defies it. What we're trying to do. But so what we did in Western Australia, I just want to share that with you. So obviously we have a state-based strategy, War 2030. Everybody has targets, and we have 8 headline strategies. And number 1 is consistent collection. So everybody in Perth and Peel will have a 3-bin system by the end of next year. That means we're going to collect FOGO in that 3rd bin.
Everybody being...
Yeah. Every household.
Every
household, yeah. Every household.
What about commercial?
Well, and that's another thing, because we're talking to the education department, because we need to have the same collection system in the school. Because in the school there's a blue bin and there's a general waste bin. Why don't we have the same setup? A yellow, a lime green, and a red lid bin. So it should be in every office, in every university, in every school, in every household. There should be a consistency. So we're working towards that. But because we're starting to collect the FOGO, it's 1 million households, 300 kilograms per year, so 300,000 tons of FOGO material. What are we going to do with this? Because, local government has to collect it. We are a local government. We act as a commercial operator, but we are a local government under the Act. So we built some infrastructure, and we're processing now 22,000 tons of FOGO from 2 of our member councils. And the other 2 member councils are going on FOGO 1 July this year. So what we said is we need the market, we need pull, because we're going to make material. Local government said, we don't want it back, you make sure you sell it. I can't believe that. So they want to use it in their own parks and gardens. So we're actually bagging stuff and we're giving it back to the community because it meets Australian standard. So what we said is to state government, because headline strategy number 3 is circular procurement. So we went to OMTID, which is the Office of Major Transport Infrastructure Delivery. Every project worth more than $100 million, road or rail or port, is delivered by them. So we said, why don't local government make it and you commit to take it and use it in your, as FOGO-derived material, as landscaping material, for your projects. So we did a deal, a Green Deal Alliance we call it. And so we got an offtake agreement with them. And they're going to hopefully prepay that offtake as well for the next 5 years. So that gives us capital to reinvest in infrastructure again. And they will be leaving a legacy by delivering the $39 billion of projects in the next 10 years to leave infrastructure, circular economy infrastructure. So I think it's this working together and trying to create this pool and very clear roles. So what we said, there's policy in place. Now we need the pricing set and the availability, and then we need fit for place and fit for purpose. So what we've done now with the CAM Center in WA, they validate, they verify, and there's going to be a certification body that certifies the products. So we started with FOGO, now we're moving to lithium byproducts, because we're running out of sand in Western Australia. We need 8 million tons of sand. So we're going to reuse the sand, and we just started the trial for 2,000 tons in a road. We're looking at plastics, we're looking at C&D, all of that, so priority products. So by working together, industry, local government, and the state government, through their departments, I think that's the key to success. Yeah. And then it comes business as usual.
Yeah. The value chain collaboration. We can't, I think also when you think about it in the context of the scope emissions, and when you look at scope 3, everybody's sitting here doing this, right? No one organisation can solve the problem, and that's the same in circularity, and we do have to be thinking different. As Joanne said in his presentation, there's going to be a tension. How do we start coming together? You make it sound so simple. I mean, I don't know why. Why aren't we doing more? What are the challenges? Why is it not always that simple?
Yeah, it's look. There's a number of reasons. I think it's So firstly, like you said, there's nowhere for this stuff to go, right? And then,
but we just heard there's plenty of where for it to go. And I my presentation, I said there's $237 million of public infrastructure investment over the next 5 years. There is places to go. Is there? Do we agree or not?
Well, currently there's no place to go, but we have to create these markets.
Yeah.
And that's a parallel process to establishing an infrastructure.
And that takes time, right? As we talked about before, you go through your planning process, you go through your environmental processes, you need to get the investment, you need to build the capital itself. So energy from waste projects, for example, are about a 5 to 7 year lead-in at least. An extension of a landfill, 10 years, right? So, and when we're thinking about landfill capacity as well, now's the time to think about it. Not next year, not the year after. With the timelines and the lead-in time, the time to think about it is now. And I think it's also, circularity and low-carbon solutions go hand in hand as well. So we're trialling HVO 100, which is a renewable diesel made from vegetable oil, in 2 of our trucks in Victoria. It will reduce our Scope 1 and Scope 3 emissions, and for our customers as well. We collect the vegetable oil, the used cooking oil. We reprocess it in one of our refineries, clear it up. Then we give it to Neste, who put it into, mass balance, sell it back to us, and we use it in our trucks, and it reduces emissions by 90%. Now, this is something that we can actually do today. We've got 4,500 trucks out there on the roads, and this is going to make a substantial difference to the emissions, and it's available now for any heavy vehicle fleet. Couple of things, it's twice the price of diesel. So when we go to our customers and say, hey, we've got HVO 100, they say, yes, we want to use it. How much is it? Twice the price of diesel. Thanks, but no thanks. So subsidies will really go a long way. And also regulation, because we can't drive our trucks on the roads with HVO 100. So we've received an exemption for the road standards. But by next year, HVO 100 will be included on the roads fuel standards. So we can drive those trucks on the roads. But yeah, look, it's regulation, lead-in times, and I think there's, like I said, HVO 100 is great. It's able to be used now. So there are things that we can use now that are available.
I think I might just pick up, because you did mention the infrastructure and the investment in the infrastructure in your last presentation. I've been delivering grant programs for government for years. That would be well over 19.
And thank you for the $6 million.
You're welcome. It wasn't me.
Take it, Lorna.
But yeah, no, maybe it was me. My biggest frustration and challenge is government gets stuck in a process of this is how you run a grant program, and we assess those grants or those applications on their merit, but we don't do it strategically. So one of the things we did in Victoria, and if Damien Connell is in the room, there he is, we went out and we developed regional circular economy plans. And that was the first step of having a conversation with local governments around what is your regional economic development opportunity? What is your waste that you're generating in the area? And then how might we place strategically invested infrastructure in that area to help you develop a local or a regional circular economy? We're a long way to go. Like that's a big conversation to be having at a local council stage who are still focused on, I just need my bins to get picked up every week. But it's the start of the conversation around that strategic investment. And the whole plan in Victoria and Recycling Victoria, Deb Kales might be in the room around the Victorian Recycling Infrastructure Plan, is we then use that to determine where we strategically invest in the right infrastructure to get circular outcomes. Not just processing infrastructure for the sake of processing, but processing infrastructure for an outcome.
Yeah. And that's what we need to see more of. And I'll give you, if you've got a second, and then I've got another, I want to keep going into this on the industrial symbiosis piece.
Look, and that's great to hear because I'll just give another example of there was a paper and cardboard grant, and we had the federal government ringing me saying, can you please apply for this grant? But it's got to be strategic, right? And there's got to be a need, and the funding and the grants available have to be targeted, as Lorna said. So we're not going to invest in pulping because it's a $500 million investment, and then the money is really made in making that into paper. Cleanaway is not a paper-making company. We're waste and resource recovery, right? So we would export it then to overseas market, but you have to dry it out because it'll go mouldy on the way over there. So you dry it out, export it, and then it has to be made moist and wet again for it to be reprocessed. So we're never, ever going to invest in that type of infrastructure. So if it's actually more targeted and falls off the back of the waste infrastructure plans, then it's great to hear.
Can I just add one point? And this is about the drivers for circular economy. So the City of Gold Coast, one of our light bulb moments was when we did our carbon inventory. And actually the driver for a lot of our investments in the ARC project is a commitment by the council last year to be net zero, ideally by the Olympics. I think that's being softened when we realise how hard it is. But that light bulb moment of trying to pull together two significant drivers really solidified the need for our investment and actually backed up the business case a lot. So when we talk about the project, we talk about net zero, removing the reliance on landfills, and activating the recycling enterprises precinct in the area from an economic growth and good stewardship perspective. But that secondary driver solidified it. So I think looking at broad aspects of what benefits, we might be very focused on this, but we're going to solve other people's problems. And that, just really gave us that step to make the investment.
So I love this because this is exactly what I was talking about in my presentation around, thinking about, and as regional development practitioner by sort of trade, it's why are we even having this? This makes sense. Of course, this is the way we should do it, right? But we're not quite yet, but we're getting there. And that's a great case study. So if anybody needs to speak to Victoria about what they're doing, please talk to Lorna, and she will also happily provide you with the context to her other colleagues. But this idea, and I said I would pick it up in this panel around industrial symbiosis and how, on one side of the fence you can have, say, an organics processing plant, getting all that organic out of whether it's household or CNI waste streams, powering the concrete recyclers next door who are then using the biofuel from, wherever. How do we do more of that?
Well, we've got a couple of projects. We did an internal review because we've been landfilling for 41 years, and strategic review, we want more resource recovery, decarbonisation of our activities, but we will always be a landfill, so very much aligned with the Gold Coast. And we're building a pyrolysis plant, so we take all the end-of-life pellets for all of WA, about 20,000 tonnes per annum. We grind them, then we denail, and we take some copper and some aluminium parts out with the eddy current. And then we grind it down to 0.40 millimeters. And the 0 to 10 millimeters we sell to the animal bedding industry for horse stables. And this is untreated wood, only heat treated. And then the 40 millimeters, we're just commissioning a pyrolysis plant. So indirect heating, drive it up to 750 degrees. We get a syngas. Syngas goes to 6 engines. We generate 3 megawatt of power, and we have a dedicated power line into Perth Airport. And this is not just the Qantas Club and the runway lights. This is there's a whole industrial estate around it. They need 85 megawatt, and so we're going to supply. The other product that comes out of it, so syngas is one, the other one is biochar. And obviously biochar is a product of the future. Carbon sequestration. We've done a trial feeding it to cows, because cows then it goes to the first stomach. It absorbs the methane from the cow. It comes out as a solid instead of a greenhouse gas. And we can activate the carbon in filters. So as a local government, we're investing in these projects as well. And it's all about, because circular economy is 2 words. It's the circularity of the materials, but the economic opportunity as well.
Now, I know City of Gold Coast is doing, and I really want to go to Gail because I'm mindful I'm not giving it, she's not getting enough airtime, but I want you to pick on the nature-based solutions. But City of Gold Coast is also investing in a greenfield or the brownfield site as an anchor tenant to create the industrial symbiosis.
We're right in the middle of the Yatala Enterprises area, which is, I don't even know, I think it's like 4,000 hectares. But
we're home of the famous Yatala pies.
Exactly right there. If you've been to Brisbane to Gold Coast, Yatala pies, that's the exit. But in the planning, the Shaping SEQ 2023 strategy, there was a number of recycling enterprises identified, and one that was planned for the future was the Yatala Stapleton Enterprises Precinct. We are going to be the anchor tenant. This is a significant investment from the city perspective and the economic growth of the area, and we're actually working through the release of 500 hectares of additional industrial land, and then working through about another 3,200 hectares of industrial land. Southeast Queensland has a net negative forecast of industrial land compared to its needs. So we're looking to try to enable that, but one of the aspects of our project is that any excess land that we have are going to be developed into recycling enterprises areas, where we are going to give peppercorn leases to the right tenants. We're going to give free land or cheap or free power.
Can we have reuse and repair and not just recycling?
Anything in the circular economy area.
Hierarchy first.
I haven't done the paperwork for that yet, but sooner enough I'll have it. At some point there'll be a prioritisation, but basically anyone that's aligned to the intent of ARC will be able to get good commercial outcomes. And we're looking at helping startups. You've got an idea coming from Europe or Asia or America that just can't make it work because it costs a hell of a lot to open a factory. And we'll work with regulators to try to make sure that we can develop those pilot licenses. But what we're trying to do is enable all of these little firms turn into big firms.
I think Circonomy, if anyone hasn't heard of them, is one of the pin-up poster childs from SEQ of where they've came from a real sort of startup social enterprise base of wanting to get products out of a waste chain, and they're now national. They've got investment from Officeworks, and they repair, they remanufacture, and they're really starting to help corporates that are putting this stuff into the market about thinking about what the product design and why the products are failing. So they've from a small idea, a big thing's grown. So we'd like to see more of them in that park.
Yeah, look, and sorry, one last second, I'm just doing another little pitch on this, is the R&D side. So we've committed to investing in R&D. We don't want patents, we want other people to develop it, but they may be from our byproducts because, once again, local government, we have to pick up all the bins, but we're hoping in the future we don't have to.
Great. I would like no bins, and I'll tell you my policies later. I wanted to ask each of the panelists what exciting bit of tech or innovation do they think everybody in this room should know about. And I thought I'd start with you, Gail. Sorry if you put you on the spot, but I also thought with that nature-based lens and thinking about how you were talking about the bioeconomy and how do we model nature better.
Yeah. Well, I did mention earlier this this product, so I might just read something quickly. It's called APEEL, A-P-E-E-L. So APEEL is a company that's come up with an innovative way to eliminate single-use shrink-wrap plastic packaging on fresh fruit and veg, while at the same time tackling food waste. APEEL is a layer of edible, plant-based coating applied to fresh products that mimics and enhances the natural defences of fruit and vegetables. This slows down the two main things that cause spoilage, water loss and oxidation. So there's just an example. And I think, you know, when I was thinking about that, we do get a lot of these fruit punnets coming through the system in MRFs. And if you've got PET fruit punnets being mixed in with PET bottles, they have a different melt point, and in terms of cost and offtake, we need to separate out the fruit punnets from the PET bottles to get a better return on the PET. I don't know if it's the same for you guys, right? So there's just one example, right? With the fruit, you know, I don't know how we used to buy strawberries. I was trying to think that before fruit punnets were around, how did we buy strawberries? How did we buy blueberries? How did we buy all these things that are now coming in these single-use type, you know, packaging? So one of the things is, as I was saying, with a material recovery facility, hands up if you've never been to a material recovery facility, or hands up if you have been. Let's see if you've been to one. Awesome, like that's amazing, because often a lot of people, when I speak to them, they've never been to a material recovery facility, so they don't even understand the technology and how the process works. So rethinking material recovery facilities for the future. So we have a design engineering part of our business, RDT Engineering, that designs material recovery facilities. And so we're always thinking about how we're going to redesign the MRF or design a MRF that's going to be best placed to service that, you know, recovery and resource recovery of materials, and then provide it, you know, to companies that will then do the offtake. So we're not actually, you know, investing so much in the offtake. We'll do some of that in terms of plastics, just to add value, in terms of, you know, shredding, palletising, and that sort of thing. But there are other companies that we can work with. So I think it's that collaboration with other companies, and getting back to local government and having sort of intentional planning and the opportunity to work with local government to bring people together and share. So companies coming together, like for instance City of Hume, City of Kingston in Victoria, they've run a lot of training and sessions where companies have come together to look at how we can build circular economies in that particular local government. And hats off to Gold Coast for what you're doing. So I think more and more as industry works more closely with local government on these opportunities, but also works with innovative offtake companies or designers right at the start of the process, because we end up with what's left in the bin. And I agree, you know, but maybe we don't have a bin anymore. But then I know when we went to commingle bins, like I remember the time we used to just have, you know, tubs, and we used to just put bottles and phone books when we had phone books, you know, and they used to go out on the curbside, and everything was sort of clean. You couldn't put rubbish in there. But now, because we've got everything in one bin, people can just fill it up. If one bin's full, they fill it up with other stuff. So I think it still comes back to the problem of away. You know, you put it in the bin, it goes away, and something happens with it. Get rid of it. So until we really have people understanding, you know, that there is no away. And I was talking to a colleague who was saying in Germany, like when you go to Aldi, I think you buy materials and then you unwrap them and you put them into the right container at the actual store. So even thinking about how we redesign supermarkets or redesign the way we package things right at the start, I think it's the
I like
answer.
that. I'd like to leave all my stuff at Woolies or Coles or wherever before I leave the store and let them deal with it, which we know what happened last time. And all hats off to Liz for what she was seeking to achieve with that. Mark, 30 seconds.
Technology.
Tech and innovation.
Technology and innovation. I think what's really exciting at the moment is satellite imagery for landfills to actually see, to monitor the amount of methane that is getting leaked. You know how much you capture, but you don't necessarily understand how much is being leaked.
Would I be right in saying that it's actually an open data set? Like, is that available to the public?
There is, but you can get much more granular.
Granular.
Yeah. So I think that's great. It would be really great to know how much leakage you have. It's better for the environment. It's better for us because we can capture more, and it's I think it's better for society.
Great. And if we could just get a price on that, we'd sort that problem out. No trouble. Go ahead, Grant.
Look, it's probably a broad set of technologies, but just the amount of different companies that have approached the city over the last 6 months since we announced this project about the off-takes and the different products that we can get out of, the red bin, the residual waste bin that we pick up from so many houses.
One, tech and innovation. Let's go.
Something from the Dutch delegation that probably many of you have been involved with. There was a farming solution that came to the side. Jessica is the name of the lady that's running it, but it takes carbon outputs of our FOGO system, recycled water and heat, and it's really the first person that's asked for heat out of anything, but it produces, I'm going to get this wrong, 10 times more agriculture, and it's effectively industrialised agriculture. There's one down in South Australia called Sundrop. But that kind of thing sitting right next to one of these industrial parks, I hadn't thought of building farms. That's just an amazing extra, and it adds into food security and living local and all those extra things.
Amazing. Thank you.
One thing.
Yeah, one piece of tech or innovation that you have to share
Advanced.
as an agnostic.
Okay,
No, kidding.
Look,
Non-Victorian.
the one thing I've been really excited about seeing in Victoria in the last 2 years has been advanced recycling, because I think we'll always have plastics of some sort and some description. I'm hoping that we don't get the big problem plastics, but we get down to many less polymers that we've got to deal with. But I think advanced recycling is a game changer.
Well, I can't believe it. I had Carbon Mapper, Mark. That's your carbon, your satellites that are going around to see the methane, yeah. And then I had Jessica with. So now I have to quickly come up with something. Now we've been working with Woodside on a project, actually taking landfill gas, which is the perfect combination of CH4 and carbon dioxide, and they want to put that through a microwave plasma arc, and it then splits, and it reforms as hydrogen carbon monoxide. Then they seed some bacteria with that carbon monoxide, and they use the syngas or the hydrogen as food. It starts fermenting, so it's just like whiskey making or beer brewing, fermenting, and it generates ethanol, and then you put it through a distillery, and you get then pure ethanol. And we wanted to build that on a landfill, and then I change over some of the heavy equipment to an ethanol engine, which I found out Zimbabwe runs on ethanol, and South America runs on ethanol. From biomass, but so we have to be just innovative about looking at things, because methane started off as a environmental issue. It's dangerous and it smells. Then suddenly we were burning it, and we're turning methane into CO2 and generating renewable energy. And now we're looking actually harvesting it and making a renewable fuel out of it. I mean, I think that's just mind-blowing.
Thank you. I saw one recently. I think her name was Greta. It wasn't a person. It was the name of the machine. And you put like fridges and end-of-life appliances into it, and when it crushes it, it separates all the, particularly where they've got the dangerous ozone-depleting gases, captures it, does something fancy. I'm not exactly sure. Maybe, hopefully, something similar to that. And then also separates all the rubber from the plastics from the metals. And because also, obviously, like in fridges and that, the ozone-depleting gases are also in the insulation. So it doesn't just deal with the thing. So I thought that was a pretty cool piece of tech that we don't have in Australia. That would be great to have here. I wanted to give the audience an opportunity. I know we've jumped around on lots of topics and I think covered a lot, and there's so much more I would love to ask these panelists because their wealth of knowledge, insight right across the policy, regulatory process and infrastructure space is priceless. But do we have any questions from the audience? Yes, here. Now, please do wait for a microphone. This lady up here, and then we'll go to the gentleman at the back. Please do wait for the microphone, introduce yourself, and go ahead.
Hi, my name is Melody Gonyora. I am from Sphere Infrastructure Partners. I'm an environmental advisor. Thank you very much, panelists. That was a very insightful discussion. I want to talk about, I love the sustainable design issue. We talked about a lot of things. What I'm not sure is if we understand the problem in its entirety, because we're talking about the targets at 2030. Western Australia is doing amazing. Victoria's got, their own initiatives. Queensland, the states and territories doing well. Again, there's no cohesion, as we keep saying. The policy is fragmented. A lot of funding towards recycling, energy from waste, all of that. And then I also wonder if we're now going back retrospectively to say, oh, wait a minute, we've got so many plastics and all these things we can't recover, so we've got to sustainably design our buildings, our infrastructure, and all of that. But I don't know if we understand the problem in its entirety and if we're catching it or if we dash to the solution mode and thinking of all these innovative tech designs and everything without fully understanding the problem. Where the waste generation is still not great, the outcomes are poor. Where is the problem? And are we solving the right problem? Thank you.
Go ahead.
I just saw a recent report that Sydney is generating vastly more waste than it has before, but it's not because of population growth, it's per capita actually producing more waste. So, we are facing a crisis. And, I think getting back to the basics and thinking about the waste hierarchy, avoid and reuse is the most common. And we've invested in plastic recycling. Ultimately, we'd love for plastic just to disappear altogether.
Yeah, I would agree. I would say, particularly from my standpoint, the problem is consumption and overconsumption and a high degree of consumption in Australia. I think talking to our audience who are the ones dealing with the end and not so much able to influence a lot of the front end. I think that's where we've targeted the dialogue on this panel particularly. But I 100% agree that we really need to be thinking at a policy intervention level, and I think you're doing some of that as well, Vic, around how you address that front end and that before it even gets to the back end, which is what we're talking about now.
Yeah, and I think it's a really good point, right? But there's not just one problem. Consumption is definitely the main problem. But there are many subsets of what the problem is, depending on what material you're looking at, depending on what sector you're looking at, how we're engaging with people, what people understand. It's multifaceted. And in Victoria, we were criticised because one of the cornerstones of our circular economy policy was the introduction of a fourth bin, right? And it's this isn't about recycling. But collection is a huge part of a circular economy because you need to be able to collect to recycle, recirculate through the system. But we bit that one off as the biggest problem because we had a crisis. We had a market failure in Victoria, so we focused on that. But that meant the 35 other problems that we might have had on the paper that we knew we couldn't get to because we're limited by resources, we're limited by, dare I say it, political election cycles, and so it's really challenging for government, and that's where the collaboration, not just with industry and local government happens, but we need to figure out how we collaborate with individuals who participate, who do the consumption, and how can we help them help us to achieve those outcomes. So I think you're right on the mark. We might not have nailed what the exact problem is, but there are many problems within that.
Thank you. I'll encourage everyone to chat to the panellists because I know they have more to say on that topic, but there's a gentleman over there, just in the interest of getting as many questions as possible in the next 10 minutes.
Thank you. My name is Hadi from Local Government Procurement, LGP. We actually recently worked on projects on the the role of circular economy in procurement. And we surveyed New South Wales councils to identify the challenges and provided some recommendations. The result will be published as a white paper soon on our website. One of the challenges that we identified, aside from the common challenges like lack of awareness or cost to implement that you mentioned, was the lack of leadership support. And then some councils mentioned that without the endorsement and support of senior management, they're struggling to secure some resources for applying and implementing sustainable circular economy initiatives. So I would like to have your opinion, especially Lorna, so how we can encourage, how we can, what sort of best practices we can use to bring more support from, more buying from leadership. Thank you.
Thanks for that question. Look, I think it's a real challenge, right? Because we need to engage with everybody, but you need to find something that is the hook for the person that you're talking to. So what's in it for me, and it doesn't matter whether it's a householder or whether it's my executive director or my minister. The conversation I've got to frame is, well, this is what's in it for you, and this is why it matters. And, you know, sometimes we take advantage of that and we do some stuff around the edges that doesn't matter to them. But one way we got our policy up in Victoria in 2020 was because we had the 4 bins, and that was what politicians understood. They were like, that's simple, I get it, it's a process, it's a system thing, that's fine. But we also built a whole range of other circular economy activities around that covered the entire supply chain. So there's a bit of, you've got to pick your opportunity, but you've got to find the hook in which you can use the influence to say, have I got a solution for you, and you're going to love it.
We did a lot of myth buster sessions at the OMTID, just showing the products and just taking out the angst out of using recycled material. And it really shouldn't matter, because if it meets the specification, who cares where it comes from? The other thing what we did is we developed a model spec for FOGO-derived material in big build projects. So that means an engineer actually has a document where it can go to, and that's you can find that in our knowledge center. So during the Mythbuster session, the COO of OMTID, he actually got up and he said, "There's no argument anymore. We're going to use this." And that's, I think you're spot on. You need that leadership, adoption and actually pushing this. So. But it's a hard road. The other thing is that we cannot fail as a supplier, so we have to make sure that we consistently, supply at the agreed quality and timelines. And the other thing what I've found is now we're actually in with the designers and the landscape architects, because some plants are phosphorus intolerant, and surprise, surprise, food waste, obviously get a lot of nutrients and phosphorus and potassium. So now they're designing the landscape with not phosphorus intolerant or sensitive plants, so we're getting in the design phase. Another thing is that design life of a bridge or so, now the engineers come up with 120 years is now the accepted design life. They build a bridge, and has anybody been to Fremantle here? Fremantle, yeah, there's a traffic bridge that goes from south to north. That was designed for a 3-year life in 1939, and it's still there, so. I think we have to peg back a little bit the expectations, the platinum plating of infrastructure projects. Why do you design something for 120 years? Because we know that with the urban sprawl and what's happening, we're going to have to put new infrastructure anyway. Why do we have a modular bridge that we can then pull apart or we add to it?
I think we had this conversation last night, and this is a huge frustration of mine, and I've just travelled last year to the Philippines, and you see the plastic washing up on the shore, and then someone brought it up in another section, they have no waste management, they have no ERP, they have very few choices and abilities to influence. Australia, wake up. We have good quality people, smart. We have talent, we have investment, we have a high standard of living, we have a whole lot of things, and we should be getting this right. And it is up to everybody in this room, I think, to be pushing the boundaries to be in the circular economy space, we talk about the coalition of the willing. Find the coalition of the willing and put the pressure on the people that need the pressure put on them, whether it's the CEO of the local council or the director of whatever department in the state. And it's great that the state takes leadership, because it is very difficult for 50 or few hundred local governments to all act independently. So you do need and that's where the national strategy will play a huge role, I think, when it filters down. But what we do need is we need this top-down and bottom-up pressure at the same time, and everybody in this room has a role in that system. And I talked about the Ellen MacArthur butterfly system. All those people are you. All those people in each part of that system are the people sitting in this room, and you are the behaviour change, the leaders that need to be doing something differently. Another question. Just gentleman over here. The lady's just on the other side of you, handing over the mic. Thank you.
Thanks, panel. Jason Scarborough from JS Regulatory Services. I've got a question that relates to FOGO, which I think we can all agree is probably the biggest challenge we're facing in circular economy. We can educate people what to put in the bin, what not to put in the bin. We can pick it up, we can process it, we can post-process it. Not a problem. Marcus, I've come across your problem a lot in my line of work. What the hell do we do with it then? Can I ask the panel why they think that, and borrow from you, Gail, if we're thinking like nature thinks, why it seems like returning the carbon and nutrient to agricultural soils is not getting the attention it probably deserves?
Grant, it's got something to say? Oh, you go first. Go first, Gail. No, you go ahead.
Okay, well, I wrote a guide for local government on FOGO a few years ago. So I did a lot of looked at case studies of what everyone was doing and what were the early adopters doing. How were they engaging with their communities? And then we shared that, and we ran a FOGOology program with Les Robinson. We engaged on social media with local government, really got into social media where they could engage with their communities and ask questions around FOGO. So I think we've really shifted a lot with that, how we do the engagement. But when I was thinking about the bin, we go back to this bin, right? We've got this standard bin, and I think we need to reimagine the relationship with these bins. So I was thinking, like, you put something in a bin and it goes away, but if the bin had something on it, like a wrap that said, this bin is going to a farm, and you're going to and so it's a picture of a farmer, and then someone was saying the other day that with the FOGO they give out vouchers, so then the resident gets some of that product back through a voucher system. I thought that was really cool because there was actually an exchange there where you're actually getting it back, because you need to connect. And I remember thinking that we're not connected to nature. We're not. We live in cities. I mean, I shouldn't say everybody. I mean, I don't want to generalise, but I think people are so busy just, surviving, and doing what they do. But it's because I keep thinking, what's the root cause of all of our problems? Getting back to your point, the root cause of this, I just think, is it that people are lazy? What's underneath laziness? When you get down to it, have we forgotten that we're part of this system, or have we just never really connected with it? And I think that's something that is a deeper thing. And I used to teach environmental education in schools with kids, and there was a real sort of almost despair about what's happening on the planet. And I think that's deep ecology sort of looks at that, of how do we connect with nature? How do we really get that understanding? But there's nothing like getting a bit of, growing your own veggies, getting a bit of soil and putting it, or having a worm farm or doing composting. So I think, you put it in a bin, it goes away. Unless you're going to get it back and understand what it is, you're not connected to it.
I like the idea of having a "I'm sorry, Mother Nature" on a landfill bin. To have that, remember every time you open this bin and you put something in there, to know what that this is what you're doing.
Well, I just thought, thank you. You have thank you, the wash the cream. Thank you for giving. Sorry, just have a thank you. Thank you for returning your organics, and this will come back to you, or something like that. Just that message, you can trace it. So that thank you cleansing. Wash thing, so you can actually, it's got a scanner and you can go, where does it go? So where does my compost go to, and how do I get it back?
All right, we are just about out of time. I'm so sorry, it's 10 past and I think the bell's going to go in a minute. Yep, I'm getting the nod. Please come and chat to the panellists. I'm going to ask the panellists just quickly, one metric the session title was Understanding Circular Economy. What's the one metric we should all be going back to our workplaces and your view, thinking about how we measure our progress, how we measure the speed or what's the kilometre per hour you want us to start going at, Marcus? I don't know what's the metric? Sorry, microphone.
For me, the metric is material efficiency. So how much material do we use to do whatever we do?
Every organisation needs to think about their material efficiency. Lorna.
Mine is actually about economic development, and it's place-based economic development.
Love that. Thank you. How do we measure it? Sorry. Jobs? Local jobs in circularity?
Yeah, jobs
Local
and
circular
investment.
economy jobs.
Yeah.
All right.
Really traditional one, how much we don't put in landfill. It's really, really simple. I
Yep.
mean, we can't forget about the stuff we just put in the ground when we cover it with dirt.
Thank you.
And building on that, the CSIRO have actually released a paper with a circular economy metrics formula, and we'll be taking a very close look at that.
Wonderful. Thanks.
Is it about how much we don't buy?
Yeah. Beautiful. All right, ladies and gentlemen, please thank my panellists.